Hvad så alle sammen, og velkommen til den her stream. I dag skal vi streame lidt chess. Så er der lige med en 5 minutter, du ved, god start. Håber vi vinder den første kamp. Som hver eneste gang. Håber jeg altid at vinde, selvfølgelig. Ellers ville det være lidt mærkeligt. Nej. Ikke sådan en trappet den. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Okay. Jeg skal prøve at snakke lidt mere på den stream i dag. Det kan jeg ikke. Ja, det var det dummeste. Gør jeg sidste. Oj. Oj, nu prøver jeg lige at få truet den væk. Ja. Jeg gør det her. Måske ikke er det bedste træk, men... Hvorfor er der over en 4-2? Ja, okay, det var måske ikke den bedste idé at bytte. Ja, nu prøver jeg lige at koncentrere mig den her gang. Fokusere, eller fokusere. Det er i hvert fald ikke lige fra mit speciale, skulle jeg lige frem sige. Boom! Giv op. Det gider han ikke. Okay. Jeg skal lige slippe lidt af. Det går lige lovligt hurtigt. Speedy Gonzales. Må jeg nu indrømme. Nu skal jeg gå efter hans dobbelt. Hvor så det. Den her kamp tror jeg godt, jeg kan vinde. Hvorfor skulle han overhovedet rykke? Det er der egentlig ikke rigtig nogen grund til. Okay, godt ting der. Boom, boom. Så er det kun et tårn. No bueno. Jeg føler, jeg er blevet nødt til det. Okay. Godt spil. Nu skal jeg virkelig koncentrere mig. Jeg tror lige, jeg tager et mere spil, og så går jeg videre til skak lessons. Og jeg er virkelig så hurtig. Hvad? Film? Sådan. Hvis jeg gør det. Og boom. Jamen, jeg bliver nødt til bare at rykke den væk. Okay, det er smart ting der. Det er smart ting det var. Okay. hvis jeg kan tage tilbage med den der. Okay. Okay. Boom. Hvad skal han gøre mod den? I am the one with nuts. Finito, boom, baby. Okay. Nu skal jeg bare få åbnet op. Det var her, hvor jeg godt. Og i den her tror jeg godt, jeg kan vinde før med en brik og... ja, jeg fører med en med. But never speak too soon. Okay, det er et ret risky move, det her. Okay. Men nu handler det bare om at få bønderne op efter... Jeg håber, jeg gør det. Jeg håber, han spiller meget tid på at tænke over det her træk. Så kan jeg komme lidt op. Og jeg skulle sige, det gjorde han ikke. Han gik straight to the chase. Boom. Men hvis han gør det, så kan jeg tage så. Så det håber jeg skulle bare gøre. Boom. Okay, nu kan jeg lave en free pawn. Venlig. Jeg gør det bare. Det er et risky move. It's a risky move I got to do. What the hell? What the hell? Hvordan? Den her person. Det var meget dumt, jeg ikke lige tog den der dronning. Lad os lige se nu hvis du ind. Det var ikke en god kamp, det der. Men jeg vandt den. Det er det, der betyder noget. Men jeg tror, jeg har et 69. Okay, det var bare heldigt, jeg vandt den der. Ren held. Det der. Hvorfor tager han ikke den? Det var mærkeligt. Okay. Okay. Nu skal jeg lave nogle lessons. Advanced endgames.
When playing the opening phase of a chess game, we are used to typical advice such as control the center, develop your pieces quickly, and castle.
Okay.
In the endgame, we can also learn typical guidelines to help our play, including don't rush, activate your king, and rooks belong behind passed pawns. Let's take a look at some endgame positions and learn how to best handle each situation. One of the most important endgame guidelines is don't rush. In this position, white has two connected passed pawns and should win the game. Although black has no chances to win, always look out for your opponent's counterplay that could ruin your winning game. White decides to rush forward with b6. White has no sense of danger in this position. Notice the pawn on b6 is on the same diagonal as white's king on d4. Black now shocks white by playing bishop a7. Black sacrifices the bishop in order to enter a completely drawn position. Black is prepared to capture the b6 pawn, so if white captures the bishop with b takes a7, after king takes a7, white's a pawn will be captured on the next move. If white tries to guard the pawn, let's say with king c5, black can now enter a completely drawn endgame with bishop takes b6 check. The point of this sacrifice is that after king takes b6, in king b8, black is forced a classic rook pawn and wrong colored bishop endgame. When you have a rook pawn, meaning a pawn on the h file or a file, if the promotion square is the opposite color as the bishop, this is a drawn endgame if the opponent's king can block the promotion square. Black's king will sit in the corner, moving between b8 and a8. There is no way to force the black king out. The game is drawn. Let's go back and see what white should have done instead. Since black has no threats in the position and is only trying to draw, white should be in no rush. One good endgame idea is to activate your king. White can improve the position of the king by playing king d5. And after black plays a waiting move, such as bishop g3, white plays king c6. White's king is very active and is ready to advance the pawns up the board. After bishop f2, should white rush forward and play b6? After b6, this would be a huge mistake because black can once again sacrifice the bishop with bishop takes b6, entering the same rook pawn and wrong bishop endgame. White simply has to prevent this trick by playing bishop to c5. White offers to trade bishops and win the king and pawn endgame. Black avoids the trade with bishop g3, and white is now ready to play b6. White waited to push the pawn to b6 until all of white's pieces were actively placed and when black did not have any counterplay. White is already threatening b7 check, followed by a7 checkmate. Let's take a look at another example. In this position, both sides have two connected passed pawns, and it looks like a difficult endgame battle lies ahead. With white to move, rather than rushing to figure out what to do, it is always useful to ask, what does my opponent want to play? Black could advance a pawn to a4, or develop the knight to c6 or d7. Notice that all three of these moves are on the a4 to e8 diagonal. White can completely prevent black's counterplay by taking over that diagonal with bishop to b5. By preventing black's counterplay, white's plan to advance the two passed pawns with the help of the king now becomes much stronger. Let's take a look at another position. In this position, both sides have equal material. White's bishop on c5 is active, and black's knight does not have a good way to move into white's position. You may think white's position is better, but one of the most important endgame tips to remember is that the king is an active piece. When most of the danger has been removed from the board, the king can become the strongest endgame piece. Notice that white has an unprotected pawn on a3, and black's king has a clear path to attack it. White's king, on the other hand, may have been safely tucked in the corner earlier when queens and rooks were on the board, but now it is poorly placed for the endgame. After king f7, black's king marches toward the weak a3 pawn. White tries to activate the king, and after king g1, king e6, king f2, and king d5. If white continues to try and bring the king to the defense of the queenside pawns, black's king will win the race. After king e3, king c4, king d2, and king b3, black will capture the a3 pawn and should win the endgame with careful play. Let's consider another defensive try for white. Instead of trying to move the king to the queenside, what if white tries to protect the a3 pawn with the bishop? After bishop e3, king c4, bishop c1, and king b3. It looks like white is hanging on after king e2. The power of the more active king is shown after king to c2. Black attacks the bishop, forcing it to move. After bishop d2, black wins the a3 pawn with king b2. Black attacks the pawn and also prevents white's bishop from returning to the c1 square. In the endgame, always remember, the king is an active piece. Let's take a look at another position. One of the most important weapons in the endgame is a passed pawn. White's pawn is only one square away from promoting. In rook and pawn endgames, you typically want your rook behind the passed pawn. In this position, white's rook is in front of the pawn, and black immediately moves the rook behind the pawn with rook g5.
Oh, det er smart. Oh.
This prevents white from moving the rook out of the pawn's way to promote, so white's rook is stuck defending the pawn.
Nemlig.
After king to h4, black's rook moves as far away from the white king as possible on the g-file with rook to g1.
Det er irriterende.
After king h5, white is hoping to protect the pawn with the king, so white can then move the rook out of the pawn's way to promote. Black must be patient in this position. A serious blunder would be to try and bring the black king toward the enemy pawn with king to c7. This allows the winning tactic, rook a8. White is threatening to promote the pawn on the next turn, and notice if black plays rook takes g7,
Ja, så det skal
white wins the rook with the skewer rook a7 check.
Oh, smart.
As long as black keeps the king on the b7 or a7 squares, rook a8 is never a threat. Black should now wait patiently by playing rook to g2, waiting for white to protect the pawn with the king. After king h6, white is ready to move the rook on the next turn to promote the pawn.
Yeah.
But now black can begin checking white's king with rook h2 check.
Boom, boom, boom.
After king g6, rook g2 check, king f7, black continues to check white's king with rook f2 check. As long as white's king continues to protect the pawn, black's rook will also keep delivering checks. Once the king moves away from the pawn, such as king e7, black's rook returns to the g-file with rook g2, preventing white's rook from leaving the promotion square. White cannot make progress, and the game is a draw. Let's take a look at a similar position with one big difference. In this position, black's rook is now in front of the pawn, and white's rook is behind it. Remember, both for attacking and defending, rooks generally are much better behind passed pawns than in front of them.
Selvfølgelig.
Rooks behind passed pawns have much more space to move, so a defender can use that space to check the enemy king and stay on an important file. When a rook is in front of the pawn, it has much less space available and often runs out of squares. After king h6, if black attempts to protect the rook with king f8, white has the powerful move rook f2 check. Since black's king must stay in contact with the rook, black plays king g8. And now white can win the game by playing rook a2. White is threatening checkmate on a8, and there is no good defense for black. After king h6, if black retreats with rook g8, white's active king marches forward with king h7. Black's rook runs out of squares to defend against white's pawn. Since king f8 loses to...
Bum. Oj. Og jeg er sort. Så kunne jeg jo bare tage. Okay. Hvad vil de have mig til at gøre her? Selvfølgelig. Oj, så det gør jeg her, så jeg ikke gør noget. Boom. Det vil jeg ikke. Okay, så kan jeg ikke lade ham komme fremad. Det er smart. Og jeg ved her. Kan jeg ikke bare lave en dronning? Der skiver, der skiver. Nej, hvad laver jeg? Venlig. Det giver jo mening. Det er ikke noget med kongen at gøre. Lige hint. Det der er ikke noget. er det? Nå, på den måde. Arnold somebody. Jeg har sådan ingen idé. Hvad her giver mening på nogen måde? Det giver sgu da mening. Okay. Glemmer hele tiden, hvad for en side jeg er. Okay, jeg så, at jeg skal få den der op. Det, jeg skal rykke den op. Kan ikke få den op på grund, så tager han. Hvad? Nej, selvfølgelig ikke. Jamen. Let's check. Jamen, er det ikke næste? Nå, venlig. Der, øj. Boom. What about me and you? Med det. Jeg forstår ikke. Hvad? You find always a friend promote. Det her, jo, det var en skiver. Oh my god, hvor er jeg bare totalt smart.
When opening a chess game, knights and bishops usually jump right into action. H2 and G2.
Jeg vil bare prøve. Ja, selvfølgelig. Nu kan jeg gøre det. Oh my god. Det. Oh my god, det er smart det. Hvad skulle jeg så her? Men lige. Hvorfor skal jeg ikke gøre skak? Jeg har sådan ingen dejsen. Hvorfor? Skat hint. Only one. Oh my god. Det er ikke engang set ski, ikke? Men lige... Jamen det må jeg helst ikke gøre. Hvad filen skulle jeg så gøre? Det giver mening. Se, det giver ikke mening. Der. Bum. Ej, det gav det ellers så meget mening. Det jeg allerede prøvet at gøre mange gange. Okay, jeg har ingen idé. Hvordan? But sometimes when I look into your eyes, oh my god. No. På grund af... Nå, det jeg skal altid... Okay. Jeg er ret god til sådan nogle her. Dem er jeg bare øvet mig meget. Okay, så jeg skal gøre det her. Okay. Hvorfor skulle jeg ikke gøre det?
Sometimes
Jeg vil drikke mere. Okay, jeg ved. the hell? Så skal jeg... Jamen, hvad kan jeg gøre? How the hell? Hvordan i... Skulle jeg på nogen måde kunne gøre det? Hent. Efter bussen ego med... Det kan sgu da... Det er virkelig smart. Boom. Do a waiting move. Yes, jeg forstår ikke ganske. Hvorfor lader man bare gøre det? Hvorfor? Hvad? Ja, nu kan jeg ikke rykke noget, så det er trist.
Sometimes in
Okay, nu tror jeg. Nu tager jeg lige en skak-kombis. To Okay. Nu skal jeg prøve at snakke lidt mere. Så nu er den her konge lidt åben. Det må jeg bare sige. Så jeg må åbne lidt op. Okay. Sådan er så. Det er fint nok træk. Mr. Komafs. Jamen jeg tager altid de brækker. Holy smart only. Han har fortjent at vinde. Han er virkelig smart. Der blev lidt outsmartet, det må jeg sgu give ham. Det var virkelig godt lavet af ham. Hvad er det her? Jeg må simpelthen spørge. What the F is that? Meget kompliceret skakkamp, det her, må man sige. Tror jeg vælger at gøre det her træk. Det bedste træk, han gør, det er sådan noget rigtig godt træk. What the hell? Ja. Der kom trækket. Boom, baby. Skak. Okay. We'll take this slow and steady. But sometimes when I look into your eyes, see burning lights shine right by you. What the actual hell? Hvordan kan jeg stadig føre? Okay, nu skal jeg bruge min lektion til noget. Hvorfor har jeg ikke gjort det endnu? Det er jo et sindssygt godt træk. Hvorfor har jeg ikke tænkt på det endnu? Okay, GG's. Godt spillet. Wow, et spil. Shit. Det der. Det ved jeg ikke. Jeg ved ikke, hvorfor jeg ikke har set den. En træk igen og igen. Du ved, den deroppe. Ja. Jeg ved ikke, hvordan jeg kan forklare det, men... et spil alligevel. Det var et godt spil, synes jeg. Det synes jeg var godt. Nu har jeg aldrig været så højt i ratings før. Det er ret fedt. Jeg tror heller ikke, jeg er god procent der, på grund af, jeg kunne have gjort et eneste træk så mange gange, men jeg vidste ikke, jeg kunne. Okay. Lad mig lige se det der great move. Tag en brik, vil jeg da også sige. På grund af, her tog jeg både brikken, mens jeg beskyttede min fast. Så gik det bare godt derfra. Jeg kom til at blonde min dronning, men det var også ret ligegyldigt, på grund af, jeg lavede det sindssygste comeback. Skak med det. Så det var godt spillet af ham, og ja. Hvad det her for et tournament? Jeg vil lige se tournaments, og så se, om der er nogen, som der er. Nogle gode kampe. Jeg ved ikke, måske skal jeg bare lige tage noget drik eller noget space eller et eller andet. Jamen, jeg er ret tæt på at komme op i champion. Der er kun en dag tilbage. Så, ja. Jeg tager lige noget at spise. Ja. Begynder at streame videre.